hello. Me, baby Hope. Hope Trinity Luna. Born on the 30th of November 2023. How old are you? How old are you? Are you 9 weeks old? Yeah? Yeah, darling. She's wearing a little teddy bear outfit with the cutest pink socks. She's got a little vest underneath that says, Little Sister, Hope. And she's a proper chubby little baby. She has the most beautiful head of hair. Look at her hair. It's like brown. Let me show you the back. Loads of it, in a little swirl as well. She also has blue eyes. Cleo had the same, so her older sister had the same, but they eventually settled to like a green colour with a little bit of brown. At 9 weeks, I don't know, do their eye colour stay the same or does it change? But it's incredible because I always thought Asian genes were dominant and brown eyes were dominant over green eyes and blue eyes. A lot of you on Instagram have said that she looks like me, and I do see myself in her. So I think Cleo looks a lot like Mel, and it's really nice to have a baby who looks like me now. When I was a baby, weighed 7 pounds 8, Cleo 7 pounds 9, and Hope is 8 pounds 2. So Hope was due, her due date was the 8th of December 2023. I was booked in for my first sweep on the 30th of November, the day that she ended up coming out into the world. And I was 38 weeks plus 1 day. And actually I was quite surprised because Cleo came 40 weeks plus 4. I was induced because I had gestational diabetes and I had the same condition with Hope. That's why I had the sweeps booked in. And because the sweeps hadn't been successful with Cleo, I just naively assumed that I was going to have the same labour and it was going to be the same baby and everything was going to be the same. They couldn't have been different labours. I woke up on the Thursday, and when I went to the toilet I had a wipe and had a bit of a show, a bit of blood and a little bit of what looked like the beginnings of a mucus plug. I was booked in to have a sweep anyway. Went to the hospital, told the midwife, and I said, look, am I in labour? And the midwife was like, no, you're not in labour. She did the sweep. She said to me that your membranes of the amniotic sac were bulging, which apparently is an indication that you're possibly going into labour quite soon. She did the sweep, which was quite uncomfortable, but I was like, do you know what, the sweeps with Cleo were really like, they didn't get me going, so I didn't think that these were going to be successful. Went home, said to Mel, no, she said, I'm not in labour, I'm going to go and see my mum and dad now, which they live like 20 miles away, and I go down every week to take them to do their grocery shopping. It was 1 PM and she was in Lidl's and I was waiting in the car and I began to feel like this tightening in my bum. But because I'd been induced with Cleo, I didn't know what natural labour or natural kind of contractions were. It was about 2 PM and I started timing them. They were coming every 10 minutes. So I said, Mum, like, I think I'm having contractions. Just got to go to Sainsbury's. I'll drop you home and then I better head back. And then I remember calling Mel about 2:30 and I was like, honey, these contractions are coming every 7 minutes. We organised some childcare for Cleo. She went to Mel's sister's house from 1 PM till about 4 PM. The contractions weren't painful. By about 6 o'clock, I had to stop what I was doing. I couldn't talk and I was like, it's so painful now. So we went to hospital and I was being triaged because they want to assess whether, you know, they should admit you or not. And I remember leaning over the reception desk and the receptionist was just sitting there. I was like, I'm having contractions every... And my contractions by then were lasting 30 seconds. The midwife came along and said, we don't need to triage you. You need to go straight into room 8. So I went straight into the birthing suite. It was about 7:30 where they have a changeover of midwives. We were in the room for about half an hour with no midwife.
So it's 7 PM on the 30th of November and 2023 and contractions are well underway. We are at 44 contractions now and 1 minute length on average, and on average about 5 to 6 minutes between each contraction. So
baby's 38 weeks plus 6 days
already in the room. And that's
baby, see my bump. There's baby.
I didn't even have gas and air at this point as well, so I was saying, look, I really need some pain relief because they're getting really intense and really painful. And at that point, I would say the pain of that contraction was how it was when I was first induced, so a totally different labour in terms of pain. Midwife came in, I said to her, I need an epidural, I want an epidural. They had to take some bloods, and For some reason, they had to wait for these bloods to come back. But I said to them, I had an epidural with my first child. Why can't I have it this time? But I was thinking like they weren't going to give me an epidural because I knew that I did not want to feel the baby coming out of me. That was my personal choice. And I remember they were just taking so long to call the anaesthetist. And I remember scratching my face on one contraction with the gas and air going, I need an epidural. I need it now. And that's when she like called him. I think time does something different when you're in labour. Time goes really slowly. So he came down, and I remember he was in a gown and he was getting out all his like instruments onto this table, and it was a good 5 or 6 contractions had passed before he'd actually come anywhere near to getting ready to put it in my back. And I was like, what is taking so long? I felt like he was doing like this whole song and dance of I've got this, I've got that, and you know, can we check this and we check that? And I was like, just put it in, just put it in. There's no like politeness when you are in labour. On the next contraction, I could still feel the pain, and I know from experience from having it before with Cleo that I shouldn't have felt anything. So I was on the gas and air, and the anaesthetist goes like, why are you using gas and air? I said, because I can still feel it. It wasn't as intense actually, I could still feel it. So I think he dosed me up with more epidural, and the result of that was that I became very, very drowsy. The beauty of an epidural is not only that you can't feel the pain, but a kind of calm descends into the room where it's been so frenzied and chaotic and you've been in all this pain and dreading the next contraction. It's just totally, totally calm. And we're just like waiting for the baby, waiting to fully dilate, and the nurse looks up at me from the monitor that she's looking at, and she says, I'm noticing that with every contraction that you're having, bearing in mind I can't feel the contractions because I've had the epidural, the baby's heart rate is lowering. I need to go and call the consultant. So the consultant comes in, and it's all gone from being really serene to all of a sudden like we're like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? And the consultant looks up at me and says, if this baby is not out in 10 minutes, then we need to go into surgery and you're going to have a C-section. And I just looked and I was like, what? I was like, it was just a complete spin on the turn of events and the serenity of the whole room. She said, I'm going to check you and let's see how dilated you are. And I was luckily, thank God, fully dilated. She said, right, get your legs up into the stirrups, let's push. Quite a few pushes later, Hope popped out and she was absolutely fine.
Oh, thank you. Hello, baby. Welcome to the world.
You've got eyes open already.
Hello, darling.
Hello.
Give me podcast.
May God bless you and keep you safe always. Darling.
Okay. See the inside is there. That's what I was confused. Because that's the one I gave you. That one is messy.
And there is no better feeling in the world than when your baby is placed on your tummy. It's just like the most beautiful, beautiful experience. She was 8 pounds too, so quite a big baby. When she came out, her face, like, she looked chubby, which I always knew that would be the case because I had the gestational diabetes and I just controlled it with diet alone. So from having the first contractions at 1 p.m, she was born 9 hours and 42 minutes later, so it was a relatively quick birth for me. With Cleo, I laboured for 17 hours, 14 on just gas and air. That labour was like so slow, so drawn out. So totally different labours. And I was thinking, oh, she's going to come at 40 weeks, kind of like Cleo. She's going to have the same birth as Cleo.
Hello.
Hello.
You alright? Hi, darling.
Here's your baby sister.
This your hello, sweetie. This
Hello.
is your baby, Sister Hope. Cleo, your sister. She's all yours. Wow. How are you, my darling? Oh, thank you. What do you think of her?
Actually, oh, I think she's done a poo. She has done a poo. How can you sleep with a poo? Hey, Hope, how can you sleep with a poo in your bum, darling? So we got discharged the following day. Day after that, the health visitor came. I think she'd lost a little bit of weight. I think that's very normal for breastfed babies. Then the health visitor came again at 5 days, and again she had lost weight, which was really strange because I remember having Cleo, and at that same weigh-in, she had put on weight. And I remember the midwife going, wow, that's really unusual for a breastfed baby to put on weight. That should have been a warning sign to me. So at day 5, she'd lost weight. and she said the baby looks jaundiced, so I'm going to do a little like test. She had this light which kind of shone on the baby's body, and it took 3 readings, each one of which showed that she possibly could require treatment. So we ended up going to hospital and she had a blood test, and I remember we had to wait like 2 hours in this room, and when you've got like a 4.5-year-old who's pinging off the walls, you're just like, this is the last place I want to be. 11 p.m, the results came back. Yes, her bilirubin levels were on the treatment line, which means she needed to be admitted for light therapy. I didn't have anything with me, like an overnight bag or anything, because I wasn't expecting to be admitted back into hospital. So Mel had to go home with Cleo, bearing in mind it's 11 o'clock, and Cleo's knackered, she was hungry. He dropped Cleo back to his sister's, and he packed a bag for me and came back. She was visibly yellow, like her face was yellow and her body was yellow. And I think when it goes down to the body, you know it's quite serious. So she was placed under like this little light thing. I just found it very, very distressing. I remember crying and just thinking like I had failed. I know that's a ridiculous thought, but you think all sorts of things after you've had your baby. She had 12 hours of light therapy, 2 blood tests, and on each blood test the bilirubin levels had come down. And then they were like, okay, we're happy for you to take her home. And I remember just as I was getting my coat about to walk out of the hospital, I said to the midwife, my nipples are bleeding and it's really, really sore breastfeeding. And I know like it's sore anyway because your milk's coming in, nipples haven't hardened up enough, but I didn't remember them like bleeding and being this painful when I had Cleo. So she said, feed from the other boob and put like a nipple shield on and just see how you get on. And I think by now it was day 10, the midwife came again and she had continued to lose weight above the 10% that they normally allow for breastfed babies. And she asked me like, how long is Hope breastfeeding for? And I said like 7 or 8 minutes. She said she should be breastfeeding for like 20 minutes at least. I was like, no. And I said, it's so painful. The midwife then said to me like, is your nipple shaped like a lipstick, like slightly slanted when she comes off? And I said, yeah. So she said, let me see how she's latching on. And from that, she was able to tell me that she suspected that Hope had a tongue tie. And I was like, okay, well, that's really good to know that because that explains it. But like, what do we do? When you have a tongue tie, your tongue is kind of rooted either anteriorly or posteriorly to the base of your mouth, which means you can't get the nipple deep enough into the mouth to suck really easily. So when Hope's doing it, she's getting a good latch, then she's sliding off, and where she's so tired from that actual suction movement in her mouth, she just nods off and she's not getting enough milk, and that's why she's not putting on the weight. So I was like at battle stations almost. I was like, my baby is not putting on weight. She was still looking jaundiced in her face and she's not getting enough breast milk to flush it out because she's got this tongue tie. So the midwife said to me, you need to book an appointment with the infant feeding team, which I got the next day, and go and get like a proper diagnosis. So it was the next day, it was morning, I had a cup of tea. It went cold as it normally does because you're doing so many other things. And I remember putting it in the microwave to reheat it. And you know what? I never reheat mugs of tea ever. It was a mug and it had a gold handle. Took it out from the microwave and I was like, this is really, really hot. And I ended up giving myself a really, really bad burn. It was just awful. And I literally just blamed my exhaustion. It was just like the last thing I needed. But it was such a bad burn. It was awful. And you know what? It continued burning for 3 hours. Anyway, I somehow made it back to the hospital, to the infant feeding team. The woman said to me, you need to go to A&E to sort out your hand. I was like, no, I need to sort out the baby. She was like, no. So anyway, she diagnosed Hope with a posterior tongue tie. She said to me that she needs to be assessed again in 5 days' time. And then after that second assessment, waiting time for it to be snipped would have been 4 weeks. And I looked at her and I said, Hope doesn't have like nearly 5 weeks to have this treated. She's losing weight at such a rate that there's not going to be anything left of her. And the midwives were saying to me, you're going to have to think about, bottle feeding her. And I'm not opposed to bottle feeding at all, but I knew that because I had breastfed Cleo for 2 years, that I wanted to do the same for Hope, because I would have just felt really, really guilty otherwise. I said, can I get this done privately? And she said, yeah, look up the Association of Tongue Tie Practitioners. Luckily, I work for a surgeon who actually knew someone that treats head and neck cancer patients, but also has a special interest in treating tongue tie in babies. We, by the grace of God, got an appointment to see this surgeon the next day, and he does laser treatment. So typically for tongue tie, the treatment is blunt scissors and they release it like that. And you go to like a nurse practitioner, like to their clinic. But a lot of these clinics will either in a shed at the bottom of the garden, and I just didn't feel like, for me personally, that's what I wanted for Hope. I wanted her to be treated in a clinical setting by like a surgeon, and it turns out this surgeon actually sees complicated tongue ties in babies. So the ones that the nurse practitioners don't want to treat or don't feel confident enough treating, he sees those and he treats them. We go and see him and he said, yeah, posterior tongue tie. This is going to be a really simple procedure. I only need one parent in, so Mel stayed with her because I said there's no way I'm going to be there while he lasered it off. And it was just over and done, you know, within seconds. I came back in, he said, put baby to breast, and instantly I noticed a difference. Instantly. She was sucking for longer and the latch, she wasn't sliding off. She had the tongue tie release on day 12. The midwife came back to the house on day 14 and she had put a little bit of weight on, but not enough for them to discharge us. I came back in a week's time and then her weight was like back to maybe the 25th percentile, and then she had a weigh in at 8 weeks and she's now like 11 pounds 4. As soon as her feeding improved, like the jaundice is completely gone. Things are so much calmer and better now. They have been since she had the tongue tie release. She's completely like, the jaundice is completely gone. My battery is about to die. I need to go and pick up Cleo, and I am gonna sign off here and just say thanks so much for sharing this journey with us. Please do give me a follow on Instagram. My handle is Sammy Instagram if you want to see little stories and see little Hope and Cleo. They're so adorable together. Thanks so much for your love, support, and for sharing this journey with me. I don't feel as lonely as I could have been without a lot of you like messaging me, so thank you very much, and bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye.